The endless, monotonous clicking, it drives so many beginner musicians mad, but it's perhaps the best way of improving your internal pulse and therefore your rhythm and time feel. And with a bit of work, you can learn to love this frustrating tool and greet it like an old friend. And it might sound a bit like Stockholm Syndrome, but learning to love the metronome is a real rite of passage for every musician. So let's go over why it's frustrating, how we can learn to love the metronome, and a few different ways we can get the most out of one in practice. So that frustration, we've all felt it. The piece we're playing sounds amazing, and then we turn the metronome on, and suddenly everything starts to sound rubbish. So we turn it off again, and once again everything sounds great. Surely the metronome is putting us off and making us make mistakes, right? Well, no. The vast majority of the time when this happens, nothing changes in your playing when you turn the metronome on. You just start to notice, either consciously or subconsciously, that you're out of time. And if there's one thing no one really likes, it's being told that we're wrong. And the metronome is telling you that every single beat. So how can we learn to love it? Well, firstly, make sure the metronome is set to an appropriate speed. I know, shocking. But seriously, it's super common for beginners and even some intermediate musicians to always have the metronome set to the same speed, normally the speed it's on when they first open up their app. Pretty much all metronomes, both physical digital ones and apps, have a button that you can tap the tempo on and it'll automatically set the metronome to that speed. So tap the tempo you want to play the piece at and you're golden. And you know, if you're not particularly used to using a metronome, playing any piece with one might be quite a challenge. So I'd really recommend starting off using one with scales or technical exercises. And really make sure you're listening to those clicks to try and line every single note up with them. Not slightly before, not slightly afterwards, exactly with those beats. And the slower the metronome set, the harder this is going to be, just because there's more time between those beats. And the other main thing is just to get rid of your ego. We all want to sound great, but in the practice room, focus on improvement and the process, not sounding perfect straight away. One of the best bits of advice I ever got was that your practice shouldn't sound amazing. If it does, you're practicing the wrong things. The drummer Gwilym Jones recently started the Honest Practice Challenge over on Instagram, and it's all about showing off what your practice actually sounds like, mistakes and everything, instead of these overly polished performances we normally see. But simply listening to the metronome, getting our playing as in sync as possible, and leaving our ego at the door isn't everything we can do. You see, the metronome is a tool that we want to use to improve our internal pulse, right? And if it's clicking on every single beat, well, it's doing most of the work for us, and our internal pulse isn't having to work anywhere near as hard as it could. So once you're happy playing with the metronome on every single beat, try only having it on every other beat. That way, you've got to fill in those gaps yourself while keeping completely locked in with the metronome. Twice as much work for you, but also twice as much improvement. Now, there are some really fancy metronomes and apps that you can program all of this stuff directly into, or you can just set the metronome to half the speed. So if I was playing at 120 BPM and I only wanted the metronome to click on beats 1 and 3, well, I could just set the metronome to 60 with 2 beats in the bar. But in jazz and pop styles, it's actually a bit more appropriate to have the metronome only on beats 2 and 4. That way, it helps give us a bit more of a sense of swing if we're playing jazz, or that backbeat if we're playing pop. It's the same reason why when you're at a gig, you want to clap on 2 and 4, not 1 and 3. Don't be that guy. And we can take this even further. If we have the metronome set to only click on 1 beat per bar, we've got to do pretty much all the work ourselves, and that click is just going to keep us in check once per bar. Now this is quite challenging, so you might want to have it set to click on beat 1 rather than worrying about that backbeat, especially if this is your first time doing it. But if you do really want to push yourself and think about that backbeat, have it set to only click on beat 4. And is that as far as we can go? We've only got the metronome clicking once per bar, it's not on beat 1, so we're having to work really quite hard to stay locked in with it. And if you've got this far, then your timing and your rhythm is going to be so much better than it was previously. But we can go even further. Move that metronome so it's not on a beat at all, and have it clicking only on the and of 4, the last quaver in the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 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 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Now this is really going to make you work, and it is 100% a roast, so I wouldn't recommend doing it until you're a bit more advanced. Like, you could hear there, I was really struggling with that, and that was just counting, not playing. Not today. Now obviously you can take these concepts and make up your own metronome exercises, but these ones will really help your internal pulse, your rhythm, and your time feel. And not only that, they'll help you get over that frustration of the metronome and learn to love it. And if you want a few more ideas on how you can improve your practice, check out this video next.